Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today I want to do a little bit deeper of a dive on the two new fairy cards that got revealed a little bit early. Apparently, Master Duel, a little bit too early, put in some data on new cards that had not been released yet by Konami officially. And so we know some really cool effects. These are coming in Alliance Insight. So that is, or not Alliance, is it Alliance Insight? Yeah, Alliance Insight. Why does that sound so weird to me? Whatever. I think that's the next core set. It's coming. It's coming in like a month. It's fine. It's coming at the very beginning of May. But anyway, we're looking at a brand new monster called Dawn Angel Cambi and a new continuous spell. There's another monster here as well. I'm really just not that interested in that one. I don't think it's very good. So we're gonna focus on the other two today. So what I want to do is we're gonna go through. We're gonna read the new cards real quick, talk about what their applications will kind of be based in, and then I'll show you the options of going through all the cards that already exist that actually already have pretty cool synergy with either of these cards. So let's start first with Dawn Angel Cambi. This is a level 1 light fairy effect monster. Sorry, there's no artwork yet. The data mining only really revealed effects, no artwork. But a level 1 light fairy effect monster, 500 attack, 1800 defense, and it reads as follows. If you control no monsters or all monsters you control are fairy monsters, you can special summon this card from the hand. Very, very easy, good summoning condition. Secondly, you contribute any number of fairy monsters, including this card, to special summon one fairy monster from your deck whose level equals the total levels those monsters had on the field. You cannot special summon the turn you activate this effect except fairy monsters, and you can only use each effect of Dawn Angel Cambi once per turn. So basically, what we're looking at here is a lone fire blossom that does not take your normal summon. That's realistically what we're looking at here. It's a little more restrictive than that, and I'll tell you why. Because of this level matching aspect of this card, I find it hard to believe that in most cases you're going to want to tribute two monsters just to activate this card, aside from situations where you're tributing something that like searches when it's tributed. You know what I mean? Or gets you some kind of plus when it's tributed. And that's possible too, right? If you normal summon Diviner of the Herald, it gets hand trapped. Special summon this card next to Diviner of the Herald. You tribute it and Diviner of the Herald to attempt to summon like a level 3 fairy from deck. And even if this gets ashed, you still now get to trigger Diviner to also, summon a fairy from the deck. So, like, you see how that like can kind of pair together. But I would imagine in most cases, you just want this card to be an additional starter. In that situation, it works, but that requires you to already open it with a good card. You want this card to be able to do something on its own at the very least. So I think what you're looking at for is two things. One, a fairy archetype. An archetype that can play pretty purely fairy monsters and be okay with that. And two, because obviously the fairy lock, right? That's brutal. And two, ideally a fairy archetype that has a powerful level 1 fairy. It doesn't necessarily have to be like the perfect starter or whatever, but just like something that like when you summon that level 1 fairy, it's like legit. And so this card getting to that type of card without normal summoning is very, very strong. That would be what you're looking for there. So let's take a look at some of the options we have set aside for this one. Which one are we looking for? We're looking for this one. All right. So looking at the options we have available here, this is alphabetical order, so don't take this, harshly in terms of ranking or anything. But the first one here I have is Eva. If this card's sent to the graveyard, you can banish up to 2 light fairy monsters from field or grave, which can be itself to add the same number of level 2 or lower light fairy monsters with different names from your deck to your hand. This is a cool target because the new Cambi already itself is a level 1 fairy. So it summoning itself, tributing itself to get Eva, and then like any, you know what I mean? Even if you're locked into fairies, can we get into a link to fairy or whatever? Clear Eva off the field in whatever means you need to, and then you can trigger Eva to banish both of them to add 2 level 2 or lower light fairy monsters. Then you start talking about Herald of Orange Light if you're already looking at a fairy archetype, fairy based archetype, or maybe even something in engine. Who knows? Diviner of the Herald, whatever. I don't know. And that's really, really cool. So that's a cool option. I like that one. The next one is low, and this one's tough because like this one is so close to being it. The problem is the actual boss monsters, all the rituals you play in this deck normally aren't fairies. So even though getting to low is so nice, and I think the deck even does have ways to ritual on the opponent's turn, but like, man, you do want to get them out turn one. So even though this is a really like nifty way to get too low, because your boss monster is not a fairy, you can't stick him on board turn one, and that just makes this a little bit awkward. Otherwise, this synergy is like crazy, and this would have been like an insane buff for Voiceless Voice, in my opinion. Next up is Pearly. You can throw both of them in there, whether it's the white cat or the black cat. They both work. My only problem with this is that, like, the one gripe you might have with Pearly, it definitely just is not consistency. The argument for this card, this new card Cambi, is that it's like helping you get to their stuff without normal summoning, or you know what I mean? But the deck has like 10 plus copies of emergency teleport cards in their deck. Not to mention, you might just be playing 3 of each of these on top of that. Like, I just feel like that it's not necessarily the type of card they miss. Not to mention, you lock them out of certain utility like Zeus type stuff. Although I think most of their archetype can just dance around with fairies. Not pun intended, but you know, whatever. But it works. I just don't know if it's necessarily a weakness the deck really needed. It's not really what Pearly needs to keep up with the modern game. So it works the best, I think, with the restriction, as opposed to all the other cards we're looking at here, but it's still just like not necessary. Another cool one is Agent of Life Neptune. It's an interesting one. My problem with him is just like his effect is mainly in hand. He normally wants to be discarded to reborn an agent monster. But the problem is, like you're summoning him to the field. You're not getting him to hand. So yeah, I mean, I guess you're getting him in rotation because if he's banished, he adds a Sanctuary in the Sky to your deck, but to the from your deck to the hand. But like, it's just a big old like, all right, doesn't really do anything, even though it's a cool target. And then lastly, there's Valkyrie Sesht, and this is probably the most sense-making target in the whole list here. These do seem like they're supposed to be like Valkyrie support cards. This card reads, if it's special summoned, you can special summon another Valkyrie from the deck. So without normal summon, you're going to get 2 Valkyries on the field. That's actually pretty significant for them. I don't necessarily think their win condition is still good enough regardless, but like it is make for a pretty powerful engine card for them. So I like that. And those are all the targets. So as you can see, there's not a ton going on just yet for Dawn Angel Cambi, but I think like this is something Konami does all the time. They print the Primite cards, and I go, wow, Lordly Load is kind of crazy. And then in the next set, they print Aether Barrel, and you're still like, okay. And then Blue Eyes, the structure comes out, and you're like, oh my God, this deck is tier 1. Or whatever, tier 1.5, tier 2, whatever you count Blue Eyes. But that's kind of how it works sometimes. Konami releases a card like this, you're like, that's a really good card, doesn't have a home. Konami knows what they're doing. A home is coming sooner than later. Trust me on that. I don't know if it's a TCG exclusive archetype, since this is a TCG exclusive. So maybe that's a thing after Mitsurugi. Maybe they go into a fairy archetype that has good synergy here. We'll keep an eye out for that, though. That like something probably will be coming in the next couple months. All right, and the other archetype here, the other card we need to look at here is Vingolf's Blessing. I think this card has a lot more application right out the gate when you're looking at it, and so let's focus on him. So as a continuous spell card, when this card is activated, you can send 1 light fairy monster from your deck to the graveyard. Fairy monsters you control gain 100 attack for each fairy monster in your... Okay, all right. In your graveyard, let's see, gain 100 attack for each fairy monster in your hand or graveyard, on your field or in graveyard. And if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target a level 4 or lower fairy monster in your graveyard, special summon it. You can only use this effect once per turn, and you can only activate 1 copy per turn. So this card has a lot going on. Really good effect on activation. It's just Foolish Burial for light fairies. Love that. Second effect, you get a bonus. This bonus is real, though. You gain 100 attack for every fairy on field or in grave. I mean, man, that can stack up real quick. In modern day Yu-Gi-Oh, you get 8 monsters in rotation, like 800, just there you go. Going forward, every fairy is going to be plus 800. That can stack up pretty significantly. You take a 1200 attack monster, and now it's 2000, and it's not as much of a pushover in simplified board states and stuff. So that's cool. And then, of course, the last effect, icing on the cake. It doesn't have a way to send itself, but if it does ever get cleared, you're able to then reborn a level 4 lower fairy. That's another really nice effect on top of, the main effect being the first effect, obviously. So what are we looking at here? It's basically light fairies. There's no restriction really on this card, which we love. If you love fairies. And so from there, we're just looking for good light fairies that actually give you value when they are sent directly from the deck to the graveyard. So again, we have to start by looking up at Ava. Ava's really interesting. So if this card's sent to the graveyard, banish up to 2 other light fairy. Oh, I'm sorry, we missed that earlier. So Ava banishes 2 other light fairies. So when we were talking about the situation before with Cambi, you would just banish Cambi and search 1 level 2 or lower fairy. So keep that in mind. Don't forget about that. So anyway, you could technically send Ava. Keep in mind, this couldn't be a starter because, of course, it can't banish itself. It has to banish another fairy. So you do have to have another light fairy engrave at least before sending Ava for this to work. But it is still decent utility to get, to get 1 or even 2 searches here if you're set up enough. Next target. I've got Lee, the World Chalice Fairy. I like this target quite a bit. I'm a fan of World Chalice. I've messed around with them in the past. They're cool. This card recycles itself. I like it a lot because this card says if this card is in your graveyard, you can send 1 monster from your hand or field to the graveyard to add this card to your hand. So once you send it, you just pitch any other monster from hand or field. You get this card back to your hand, and now you have your normal summon. This is a lot of times your main normal summon in World Chalice. So this works out for me. Next up, Lo, the Prayers of the Voiceless Voice. This one's fine. It does have synergy, but it's just okay. It's not perfect to me, right? Because it's not like a starter, right? You send Lee, and as long as you have any other monster around, you're going to get back your main normal summon. Low, though, you're sending it because when you do ritual summon, it can like reborn itself. So there's that, but you basically have to open this card with a way to ritual summon. So you already have to be able to play. It's fine utility, and maybe if there are other good light fairies that come out for Voiceless Voice or something where you can choose to send this, you can choose to send something else, and there's good utility in it, and this is just a good option to have, but this is not a strong enough target directly to me right now. Next up, we have Sacred Arch Air Knight Parshath. This card's so bad, but it does have synergy. There's not a ton of fairies that have great graveyard effects, like just being sent to graveyard and do anything. This card does something, I guess. You can banish 2 other fairy monsters from your hand, field, or grave. Then special summon this card from the graveyard or hand. It's fine. If you activate a counter trap or you negate the activation of a spell or trap card or monster effect, you can banish 2 other fairy monsters from hand, field, or grave. Oh, you have to do that. This card's so bad. Don't even worry about this one. We're skipping this one. Next up, Trias Hierarchia. This one's pretty cool, though. So this one, engrave, contribute any number of fairies you want to, or up to 3 fairies to reborn itself. Then if you tributed 2 or more fairies, you get to pop a card, non-targeting. If you tributed 3 different fairies, you also draw a card. You do all 3 things. You summon it, you pop a card, and you draw 2. It's actually pretty cool. It could be interesting to like Foolish Burial this before you go into a play, help you play around Veiler, Imperm type stuff, as well as if you are going for something like a Diviner of the Herald, now you're able to not only dodge those types of cards, but tribute Diviner to now trigger Diviner's effect to summon another level 2 or lower fairy from the deck, which is really cool. So a lot of good options there. And then one more thing I want to show off here that I totally forgot about until just now because the search engine I was using didn't give us access to the to OCG only cards. But this is another one to keep in mind here. Gem Knight Nepirim. This is a cool card. So this card is part of the new Gem Knight support. We should be getting this in Battles of Legend in a couple months. Let's see. If this card is sent from the hand or deck to the graveyard, you can send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard. And if you do, special summon this card. If this card is normal or special summoned, add 1 Gem Knight card from your deck to your hand. Yeah, it's Stratos that's going to summon itself back from grave. It's basically another kind of very similar card to Lee, the World Chalice Fairy, except just way better. This doesn't have to send a monster specifically. It can send any card. And this card summons itself back. It doesn't add itself back. So it still doesn't take your normal summon, which is really nice as well. So That's a really nice option. This card becomes basically 3 more copies of Neparim as well. And I'm already someone who believes that Gem Knight already may have like a chance to be a pretty solid rogue deck when the new cards come out. So this may just be another option for consistency for the deck. Now that may be the only target in the deck, and that may make that a little bit worse, but it definitely is a good target overall. So that's what we have. Again, some of those targets are better than I would say Cambi's targets are for sure, but I do still think we land ourselves in a position where I'm like, nah, something's coming. There's something fairy based that's coming soon, and these cards are going to be awesome in it. I really believe that at this point. So if they are cheap, if they're for, let's say, ultra rares, or even maybe one is a secret rare somehow, some way, and they're like really cheap early on, I'm gonna pick them up. I'm not saying everybody has to, but like if you think fairies are cool and you could see yourself playing them in a cool deck going like when new stuff comes out, I'd pick them up sooner than later because you don't want to be late. And when that new stuff gets printed, these cards are going to shoot up really, really quickly, just like the Primite cards did when the Blue Eyes stuff kind of got, realized to be paired with it. So there you go. There's some cool stuff. Let me know your thoughts down below on these cards. Are there any other options that you guys maybe have for these cards that I didn't maybe catch when I was doing my research? Let me know your thoughts on that, but also like your overall opinions on these cards. Are you excited for them? Not? I'd love to hear your thoughts on those down below. But I'm out of here for today. Thanks for watching as always, guys. Subscribe to the channel for more things from me down the line, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.